if you're not improving yourself for the right reasons, you could be damaging yourself. You know, the why behind everything you try to improve or everything that you're driven towards is more important than actually, you know, how far you get. So for me, I see a very direct connection between self-improvement and ethics. I think if you dig deep enough into these questions of what growth means or what improvement means, you inevitably run into what is better, period. What is better or worse, period. What makes a better life? What makes humanity better? And so it's my goal has always been, I never want to be that guy on stage who's like, this is what you should do, this is how you do it, here's my 5-step method, blah, blah, blah. You know, I want to be the guy who doesn't, I don't want to give answers, I want to give better questions. I want to help people sort through these questions in themselves, because ultimately these questions around values are so personal. There's no way for me to answer any individual without inserting my values onto them. And when you do that, you rob them of the ability to choose what matters for themselves, choose their own meaning in their life. So for me, it's all about just pointing people in the right direction, pointing out, you know, little hypocrisies or little like kind of paradoxes, and trying to steer them towards finding their own answers. Write down your goals and then ask yourself, why do I want each of these goals? What would it mean in my life if I accomplish these goals? Similarly, you know, a common exercise is like write down things you're grateful for. Ask yourself, why are you grateful for them? What would happen to your life if you didn't have them? It's not just about questioning, you know, the bad things in our life. You know, like, why did this painful thing happen? You need to question the good things as well. Like, why does this feel good? Does it feel good for a good reason? Because there are a lot of things that feel good that are actually hurting you. Anything you pursue, like our mind plays this little trick on us, which is when we want something, our brain only shows us the good side of it. It doesn't show the sacrifice required for it. And every experience you have in life, there is a shit sandwich part of it. You know, there's everything has its associated problems. But our brain doesn't think about that when we're pursuing it. And so for me, like one of the most powerful heuristics is to simply, instead of thinking about what benefits I want in my life, I try to think about what problems do I want in my life. You know, it's something as simple as like, you know, people might see this show and they're like, oh damn, I wish I had a badass show like that on YouTube. You know, it's like they don't understand, like there's a whole crew here, there's logistics, there's like waivers you got to get like clear through lawyers and all sorts of crap. And it's like, those are the problems you chose. You know, those are the problems that you wanted to have. And that's why it's a successful show. It's not just because it's like, oh damn, having a show would be awesome. You know, like it's easy to just want something. I use this analogy of a car. If your consciousness is a car, you have two brains in it. You have a feeling brain and a thinking brain. And most people's assumption is that the thinking brain is the responsible one driving, and the feeling brain is like the bratty little kid in the passenger seat screaming and pointing at stuff out the window. And it's like, it's the job of your thinking brain to like keep two hands on the wheel and be like, shut up, I'm trying to drive here, you know? And it's, as a culture, we look at anybody who fails to control their impulses or their emotions as somebody who's just fundamentally failing to drive their own car. We see it as a failure of willpower and discipline. But the truth is, if you dig into all the psychological literature, it's the feeling brain is actually driving the car. And and he's a little bit crazy. He's like, I compare him to like an angry boyfriend who refuses to stop for directions. Like, he just wants to go wherever he wants to go, and he's not going to listen to anything. And the thinking brain is actually in the passenger seat. Like, our conscious mind is a passenger in our own behavior, who has deluded himself into thinking that he's driving, even though he's not. And what I talk about is that the power of the thinking brain is that we get to draw the map. The thinking brain gets to decide what the lay of the land is. So even though we don't totally have control over what's pushing us forward, our actions, our emotions, all those things, we do have control over the meaning and the interpretation of those actions and emotions. And so what I talk about is that to develop a real sense of control in your life, to feel a sense of self-discipline, it's not about beating your emotions into submission, because that just causes greater neuroticism and compulsion. The trick is that you got to get the two brains to talk to each other, and it's hard because they speak different languages. So it's, instead of like just trying to get your feeling brain to shut up, you need to ask your feeling brain, well, how does this make you feel? It's like, oh, how does waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym feel? And the feeling brains will be like, oh, that feels awful. Like, why would you ever do that? And then the thinking brain needs to be like, okay, that's okay. I hear you. But why does it feel bad? What about 6 a.m.? Feeling brain's like, well, that's not as bad, and it would feel nice to work out, I guess. And so it becomes this like negotiation between the two sides of yourself. And there are a lot of like kind of mental tricks to coax, to like kind of work with your emotions, to leverage your emotions, and get the feeling brain pointed in the direction you want it, rather than just fighting it for your entire life.
Yeah.
I think people, when you're so focused on pleasure and pleasant rewards, you don't actually get to that question. You don't actually get to like, yeah, what's that pain that like actually kind of gets me going, and because we all have it, and that's the sweet spot when you can find it. Identity change, by definition, needs to be painful and uncomfortable, because if it's not painful or uncomfortable, nothing's changing, nothing's shifting. There might be a perception of a change, but ultimately the only way our values change is that life knocks us on our ass a little bit and causes us to question everything we understand. We have to understand that our identities are not logically constructed, they are emotionally constructed. And they are emotionally constructed based on our feelings, and they have an inertia to them. To bring it back to the Newton's laws, our identities have an inertia to them that is extremely difficult to stop or reverse. And you definitely can't do it just through logical arguments or, punishing somebody.
So how the hell do we put ourselves in those difficult situations? Like, how do we seek them out?
I think it's just a healthy habit to develop the desire to challenge yourself in every sense, physically, mentally, emotionally. One thing I definitely started trying to do, especially recently, given like the political climate that's been going on, is I seek out articles and news sources that I disagree with, because I see the bubbles that everybody's in and the tribal lines that everybody's drawing, and I'm horrified by it, but I also want to try my best to not succumb to that myself. And so I read sources, I read books of things I disagree with, and it changes me. It really does. It softens me. Sometimes I'll finish the book and I'm like, well, I still don't agree with them, but damn, I respect them now. Like, that's a smart person. And so that's one way I do it intellectually. But I think it's, that carries over into all areas of life. I mean, it's as simple as, if you go to the gym, it's like challenge yourself to do something new. Take a class that You know, like my wife just at the age of 37 decided she wanted to learn how to swim, and she's like mortified of it, you know? But I'm like, hell yeah, go do it. You know, like that's because it's not just about swimming. It's about just developing that consistent habit of like stepping into your discomfort.